Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Art of the Game over here at CabbitCrossing.com or on the Cabbit Crossing YouTube channel. And this is where we three experienced and sexy GMs
Oh yeah.
talks about tips and tricks.
Just the tip.
Yeah, Justin. Yeah, Marks. I don't know how I feel about that statement because the older I get, the more I see my dad's face in the mirror.
Oh.
So we talk about games. We give different tips as game masters, and we have experiences in various games. So we come from all sorts of places, and as we debate about these topics. And this show is originally the brainchild of Woody. And so, Woody, what are we talking about today?
Yes. Okay. So many years ago, when I was being a young fanboy for this game line, the creator of the game, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Kevin Symbiotta, I think that's how it's pronounced. But he would like put these editorials at the beginning of his books. And there's one where he talked about how he was getting these letters from fans who were complaining that there wasn't enough realism in his games. And his response to this was that not that people are looking for realism, that they're may actually want plausibility, right? Kind of on the viewpoint that sometimes people are saying what they want, but they maybe don't know what they actually want, because if you give them exactly what they want, it actually might ruin their fun, you know? But like it's basically kind of boils down to the idea that you need to be able to buy in as opposed to have it be realism, because there's no role-playing game is ever going to be a perfect reflection of real life. It can't be. The only one that tried was so burdened with rules that nobody plays it. And so so he's thinking that what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it plausible, trying to prevent something that the people that isn't really killing their suspension of disbelief too badly, or falls within the framework of whatever your genre is well enough that that people go, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm in, right? And so I have lots of thoughts about this. I've thought about it for years, and I've got a whole philosophy around this. But take it away, gentlemen. What do you guys think?
I always speak second, so I think Mark should speak second.
Yeah. Let's shake it up.
Oh yeah, mix it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I think you can't make it completely realistic. I think GURPS, maybe even basic role playing are kind of realistic in some ways. But yeah, some of those, I think we've all seen those games, some of those indie games out there where they try to be really real. They have these elaborate charts of like, you get shot, and do you get lead poisoning or sepsis or something? You're just like, oh no, this is too much. So you do have to aim for plausibility. You got to aim for genre, basically, and tone that you're trying to go for. Like if I write a story, I'm trying to write for whatever genre and tropes people expect for that reality. I'm not necessarily making it. I'm not going to make a superhero thing that's trying to be completely realistic, unless that's the whole angle, maybe, I guess. But otherwise, no.
It can be.
It can be.
The first encounter, they're shot dead.
Probably. I would dodge your bullet. Oh, nope.
Yeah.
So you gotta play with what people expect and stuff in the genres, and I think it's the same way with the games and stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of them are creating their own genres because I think role playing games are very cutting edge on playing around with genres and mishmashing stuff, coming up with new stuff. But yeah, I think that's the key, is just to build rules that fit the vibe, the feel you're trying to go for. I think another example of that too is like if you got like one game I really enjoy, which is behind me somewhere. It was from Eden Studios. It's a Unisystem, the cinematic Unisystem game, and it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I thought it really captured. It was really fairly easy to learn, but gave everything I needed to really recapture the vibe of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So to me, that's a good game design.
He's bringing out the abacus.
No. I was just thinking, realism definitely isn't a goal unless you're looking for a very grim, dark, maybe type, or slice of life, I guess, type RPG. The plausibility is definitely important, and I think there's a lot of things that go into that. But not even plausibility captures it exactly, because I think even more important than plausibility is just consistency within your world. For instance, I pulled out this book called, probably no one's ever heard of it, War Gods. And it's basically an Egyptian RPG book where people with dog heads, cat heads, all the weird types of weird things that the Egyptians wore as decoration are actual real people or something, right? And it's weird. It's fantastical. No one's in here going, that's not realistic, because it doesn't matter. It's not even plausible in the real world. It's just consistent with its own rules, right? Like they worship certain gods, let's say, in this world, and that determines like how they end up manifesting themselves in the world or whatever. And as long as you're consistent with it, like I could come to you, like Pierce Anthony is like, by the way, this applies to movies, books, everything, right? It's not just RPGs. Pierce Anthony is an interesting one. The Xanth series, I think it was, where
He's one
it
of
might
your
be a different
hometown
one.
heroes.
It was the one where every spell has to be a unique rhyme that was never said before. In
That
order
would
for
be
it to cast.
that would be the Apprentice Adept series. You're
Yes,
talking
the Apprentice Adept.
about blue magic.
Right. And
I've never read it.
no, I haven't either. But
Yeah.
the point is, let's say you had a system where that is the way that magic is cast. And then in your campaign, you just start bringing all these type of people casting magic in all different ways that don't do that at all, except the whole world was designed around this magic system. That actually will pull people out of it. That in a way is what makes it not plausible. It isn't that it relates to the real world in any way. It's just that it's not even consistent with itself. I think is actually the most important thing. And that's where it comes to know your genre, whatever you're doing an RPG with. If it's a pirate, if it's a investigate, Cthulhu, anything like that, just know your genre and stay consistent within that genre is the most important thing.
Well, the way I kind of have ultimately interpreted this concept is that looking at plausibility and taking it to the ultimate end of it, like you're really dealing with suspension of disbelief, right? And so what you need is you need to get, whether you're playing, this or D&D or the game I made or whatever it is, right? Like you have to get people to buy into this this thing, right? And so sometimes it can be very difficult if you're having people play a game that, like, say they've never seen Conan, you're going to play Conan, it may be kind of difficult for them to kind of get into the mindset of this. But like what
just tell them all get in loincloths and they'll get into history.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is like I kind of look at it from my entry point is like I've got a person sitting in front of me who is living in the real world, right? And they're going to relate most easily to their own life experience and then kind of go out from there, right? And so what I see with this is that if you have a situation where you're trying to have them be in a superhero game, right, where it is a reflection of our world but with special powers, you have much more freedom to throw in fantastical elements because the that world is one they understand, because they're operating in a world that reflects their world, but you add powers to it. But if you're going into a fantasy world where, particularly with somebody who's not necessarily as related, like they can't relate to it personally, their personal experience, then I think that the fantastic elements are going to be there, but I think you also have to double down on real relationships and human experience, and you have to put more into it that like you have to make the characters more and more like real people, because there needs to be something for them to latch onto. If the world is just completely fantastical and the people don't behave like normal people, like all these NPCs, it kind of pulls people out of the game, right? It's harder to hook them in. But if you're playing a real world game where it resembles a real world, people can kind of jump into this. I think people tend to get away more with, oh, well, we're going to meet the president, or people behaving out of character for real people, because at least the world feels right. And so I think like you really have to kind of balance suspension of disbelief against what it is that you're actually doing. And the easier it is for people to relate to this genre you're doing, the more you can get away with. And the more alien it is to them, the more you have to make it feel like a real people and real relationships and like real characters. And that, I think, is kind of the essence of plausibility. They have to have something to buy into. And if you're totally off the deep end on all of this stuff, and not like your example is the sci-fi movie of the week, and that's what you think great storytelling is, you're gonna have a hard time hooking people.
Well, this is Sharknado.
Yeah, unless it's Sharknado. Yeah.
No, that's interesting, because there is I know one problem I have is I like zany characters a lot of times. You may have not noticed, but
No, I had no
and
idea.
right, and but if when I'm DMing, I have to be sure not to do that, because if every person you met was zany, you wouldn't be able to get into it, right?
No,
It has to be that weird oddball out, just like it would be in real life in a way,
Yeah.
right? Like the court jester, there's only one court jester generally, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's a huge pet peeve for me, because like you do a lot of these contemporary RPGs, and people are always meeting the important person, because you kind of have this trope like, oh, we're going to be in front of the king. Well, you never
Yeah.
would, though. Like, I mean, I guess the king's probably safer in that environment, but like whether it's Donald Trump or Biden or Obama or Reagan or whoever, right, is in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You're never taking the orders directly from the president, and yet they always have the president be the one that meets with these people. And it's like, what is going on here?
I don't know how much this relates, but there's a joke that goes like, how close do you have to get to use uranium rods before it kills you? About 2 miles, because you'll be shot by the government.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, because like see that important people need deniability, right? And they would never put themselves in a situation, even if the orders did come from the guy in charge. There's like 5 different layers of insulation between him, like I was listening to this Shadowrun live play, and oh my god, I have so many frustrating stories about these people. But like the GM made them roll with a skill check to unlock a car, and he failed. So the guy couldn't get in the car, and he couldn't start the car because he couldn't make a skill check. But like the thing was interesting is they're going into a job, and this guy wants to pay them to basically do arson and burn down a competitor's building. Okay, so they're meeting with the person who directly is hiring them. He's offering this much money. They want more. They're negotiating. He's like, nope, this is just what it is. And the GM is just sitting there doing this and making it really boring. And they ultimately just take the job because that's where the adventure is, not because they want to take it. They should have just walked out. But it's like, even though I understand that's the stupidity and ridiculous of the Shadowrun universe, that it's all like that, and everybody else was the impunity supposedly. But it's like, you would never meet the Mr. Johnson. It's a liability for the guy that hired them, because now not only do these people commit the crime, they can now blackmail him for it. And he will go to jail. Like, it is a crime. It even though they act with impunity, and it's like, this whole thing is just it's like, it's such a violation of suspension of disbelief. Like, there's no plausibility in that. Like, the only reason people do it is because that's just how it's always been in Shadowrun. But it doesn't make any sense.
It's okay. You can get away if you're Kingpin. No one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shadowrun's actually probably my least favorite system I've ever played.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I like their games. Their video games good.
Oh yeah, no, the video games are
like
fun.
The world.
I like I like the feel and vibe of it.
The world is interesting, but but just totally aside from the game mechanics, it's just it doing that is kind of built into the culture of Shadowrun. Like, that's just how people play the game, but it doesn't make any sense. Like the fact that there's even a slang term for the guy hiring you tells you something's wrong with this with this setting, and so it's like, for me, when I run a game, I try to make sure that while the players are in whatever situation they're in, there has to be like, the adventure hook has to come from something that's genuine. Like it has to make logical sense. It can't just fall apart when they start thinking about it too hard.
Well, one thing I've heard before, like in Monster of the Week, I think actually, is sometimes you can think about the monster, which would be like the main bad guy and whatever, or maybe the person hiring. Just think of him as a PC, and what would the PC do? And
right.
PC's not going to they're going to be like worried about being outed, unless they're going to they're going to screw him over in the end anyway, or something that's part of their plan. But so.
Well, yeah, and like the monster doesn't necessarily want to get discovered. I mean, they are operating a secret for a reason, because like they know what the game is. Like the game plan is, humans will hunt me down and kill me. They'll send the army after me, and they don't want to get discovered either.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling I probably struggle with this way more than you do, Woody. In the sense that I struggle making things plausible more than you do. And the reason for that is because it's almost secondary to me. And I know that sounds terrible, but I like having improv like interactions and things like that, and just making things work out logically. Like, actually, what is the logical motivation of this person? Is actually a bit of burdensome to me, um, and I'm not sure why, but it's just like it's an interesting take because people play for different reasons, and every time you play a game, you can always pick like that's a character person, that's a character person, that's a world building person, that's a world building person, right? Like what they care about more. That's it's. I find it rare where someone's like that perfect balance between characterization and world build. No, most people are either more one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And I am definitely more characterization than I am world building, and it shows. But that's why I can never play like a very serious. I can never run a super serious game. I don't think, because I will run into those issues. Someone who is thinks like you do, let's say, will find plot holes, and then I have to come up with like logical explanations for your plot holes.
Yeah, and we'll point them out.
Yeah, and there's no. I'm not saying there's any problem with that. There's not at all. It's just part of the fun, right? But like for instance, even in TV shows, like I said, this applies to everything. Some people can watch Star Wars: The Acolyte and think that's a pretty good show. I'll watch that show and think this is the biggest piece of crap ever. Why would they ever do this? What's the motivation for this person? This is so dumb, you know?
Drunk with power at Disney.
I like the Switch song. It was great. Highly creative.
Well,
Yeah.
if I may give,
depends.
If I might give you a bit of a rebuttal there, Greg. Like one of the things that I think that we're eventually going to have to do an episode on how to handle retcons in RPGs. But like the thing is that like so much of what we do is an improv game, right? Where as a GM, right, you frequently will be in a situation where the game will end. You cannot prep for next week because you don't know what the players are about to do, right? And so you have to come in with your improv game and be ready to go with whatever direction they're going to go, right? And it's always going to be like that. And you often will find that no matter how well you prep, even in the middle of the game, it's going to pivot in this other direction. You're like, okay, you got to be ready to do that, right? But it's like the thing is the entire thing operates on retcon because everything's being retconned until it's happened, right? But even then, you can go back and like, oh, because we have more flexibility to go back and go, oh, it's actually this way, right? Than any other medium in entertainment, right? And so when you're dealing with like logical, like if you need this person to be here and act a certain way, you do that, and the players will generally go along with it for the most part, right? But the thing is like you actually have the freedom to make it make sense after the fact, and most of the time we will. Right, like and you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out when you do it. It's just because the players are in the moment. If they're in on the experience, they're just going to go and they're going to go with it. They're going to deal with whatever's in front of them. Right. They'll react with it properly, and they won't necessarily think about some of those details until they have a chance to take a breather.
And if they do think about it, they might go, oh, maybe that means he was doing X. And then you're like, yes,
exactly. and yes, totally. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. Right. But then sometimes it's like, oh, that's a good one. Cause my friend Keenan, which we should probably have him on as a guest on one of these one time. Like I did that to him totally because we were in I joined this Pathfinder campaign, and the players most of them had no experience ever before, except my cousin. I'm just thinking like, dude, why? What the hell's wrong with you? Anyways, so, but they were dealing with a pair of liches who were in a fortress protecting refugees from some invasion. And they had a portal going to another reality, and one of the liches was pulling his counterparts to assist him. So there were duplicates of this. There actually were like a half dozen liches here, and we're all. They had been interacting with these people, and then we were there. Like they bring me to meet this guy, and I'm like, "What the f is going on here?" And because I'm the only one at the table that really has the like I'm coming in with actual experience, right? Yeah. And I know what this is supposed to mean, right? And I don't know why my cousin's going along with this because he knows better too. But like, I'm watching this happen, and I'm like, what is going on here? Stop. And they're like, what? You guys are going to walk away? We're just going to leave this portal here? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, it means this, and this. This is what happens in these situations. This is the enemy we're supposed to be fighting. And they're like, well, how do you know? And I'm like, and I point to the Game Master goods because that guy's a science fiction fan, and I've been listening to my cousin for the last year tell me all your plots, and everything you guys have ever done is the greatest hits from a science fiction setting, not a fantasy setting. This is a science fiction game that looks like a fantasy game, and therefore that portal is bad. That was
You
my
metagamed
entire
it.
I was
You're metagaming a bit there.
Right. I know, but the thing is that, but in any other logical sense, though, you don't walk into this situation if you have any knowledge of what you're doing in an RPG and go, oh, well, it's cool. You know, nobody would do that. You two would not do that. Neither of you would do that, and do not tell me you would.
No, I'd be like, it's great. Portal. Woo.
No, bullshit.
We need more portals.
Bullshit. You two are seasoned and tenured.
They let in fresh air into our world.
No, you guys are tenured. You would not do that. So, anyways, so what happens is the guys, everybody at the table looks at my friend the GM Keenan. Then they look at me. Then they look back at Keenan, and Keenan's like, "What's?" He kind of has this look like, I'm trying to keep it together, right? They look back at me and go, "What should we do?" And so I'm like, "We do this," and then immediately Keenan had to, basically expose one of those guys as the villain. And he's like, "Okay, well, fuck you, I'm out." And then, I talked to Keenan later. It turned out I was actually wrong. It actually was as innocent as they thought. But he basically had no choice to pivot because I had made this impassioned argument, and Keenan is kind of running the numbers in his mind, going, "Oh,
Yeah,
this
exactly.
could be that." This opens. He's like, he sees the juicy plot opportunities. I know how this guy thinks. Like, he's immediately like, "Oh shit, this is awesome!" And so he immediately went that direction, and the guy that I outed became the main villain of the campaign. And and was
Nice.
and all he was just some stupid lackey. And it's like,
Well, that's why we say in another series somewhere, when you start a campaign, start small because you never know where it'll go.
I think I said that.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
What's funny talking about improv and stuff. What I thought was really interesting, I was looking at an original, like an ode adventure I wrote for some friends for Monster of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
We were thinking about playing that on the channel. And I realized, like, wow, I improved like a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just didn't go certain places, and then they just ended up like hooking on certain characters, and some of them became a lot bigger than I had written down.
Yeah,
and one of them became big enough that they moved on to the next episode and stuff. And
nice, yeah.
And I really liked that experience. I think Monster of the Week has got some really great advice on how to lightly improv a story. Like, I over prep, but because they actually like don't. Have a few bystanders, figure out your monster, get a few locations, figure out like what the monster is doing. They have like this system where you're like 6 steps. What would the monster do if no one interferes, basically, and then run with it. And bystanders have these little archetypes, basically like motivations that people have. Like a bystander could be in the way because they're authority figures, like, hey, you're breaking the law and stuff, or they could be the skeptic. Or somebody keeps getting in the way of something, or they could be helping you out and stuff. So I thought that was a very useful tool from PPTA and Monster of the Week.
Those are also great because they also add in that plausibility point, because it's like, again, like the world has to resemble the real world a bit for it to be relatable. And those are all things that people run into in real life. Like, like even though I firmly believe there's a spiritual side to humanity, right? Like that, I think we do live again when we die.
We're talking about ghosts off screen.
Yeah, we are. But at the same time, like, I'm also going to be the skeptic on that, because like most people who are approaching that viewpoint, I think, are not necessarily approaching it from a sane viewpoint, and it tends not to be. I know it sounds insulting, but like, you talk to people, and some of these people are talking about this, like, they believe it. They're crazy. Like, you're not somebody you can have a rational conversation with. And so, like, I also approach these things with a healthy dose of skepticism, because, like, I don't believe we're being attacked by invaders from a parallel universe that want to leech our energy and life force to feed themselves. Like, that's insane.
That's what they want you to think.
Yeah, exactly. But like,
what were we talking about ghosts for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like
plausible.
I think that the more life experience you have, right? Like the more plausible, like the more of that you can bring to the game, because like a person with no life experience, as is the case of many people entering the the hobby right now, like they're only going to bring what they know to the table, and I think that like me at 50, I'm going to be far better, as a game master in terms of injecting that aspect than I would have been or was at 18. Like I was okay, I was pretty good, but like you know, the more experience you have, the more you learn, the more you relate, interact with people, and have all these experiences in your life, the more you can bring to the table. And
My character puts
build
pictures
it
on
up.
Instagram. I
Yeah,
don't know about
exactly.
you.
I so in this book that my wife is kickstarting, this is not a segue, it's just an example of what we're doing, but like the I had put a new background called Thug Camp, where you go to basically, it's like a job corps, and you basically learn how to be an enforcer, but it's entirely based upon this story as my friend was telling me from when he went to job corps. And so like yeah, your life experience is valuable, interject it into the game,
Oh yeah.
as
Yeah,
much
for
as you
sure.
can. Yeah, and listen to the stories of people at the table, and you also, an interesting thing too, you get a lot of life experience from these adventures, because even though you're not actually like living these things, you're going through all these things with your friends, and it is life experience, and it doesn't, like the more you do it and you deal with people, observe how your friends react to things, how they interact and how they respond to stuff, because that is also valuable too.
And if you just do pre-built modules, I mean, that'll give you lots of experience too for
Yeah.
future
Yeah, they get
things.
started. Yeah, I'm ready for a zombie apocalypse myself. I've had a lot of training to fight it.
We
I
missed
can't
our
find my
chance.
bullet.
The vid was not bad enough to do that. So yeah, yeah.
Anywho.
All right.
I left out the part of that word that we get us demonetized. Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry about realism too much unless that's your theme, like shadow, dark, gritty, whatever. Then you
Yeah.
whatever. But otherwise just go for plausibility. Stay consistent within your world, otherwise it'll jut people out. And I'll just say, like, maybe don't throw random modern day politics into your system. That'll also just throw people out immediately, right? Make it like you're writing a story, like it's going to be eternal, whatever, right? So like,
And learn the rules of the genre you're playing in.
yeah.
Yes.
I think that's what a great thing about role playing games is they break genre and they recreate genre, but then they have art usually to help you imagine the vision of the author. Because there's some stuff like from Monty Cook and stuff, I would be like, what is going on here? If I didn't have the art, it would be hard to picture.
Interesting.
For example,
Or that, or a hot dog.
Yeah,
hot
the
dog
hot
eating a
dog
hot
art.
dog. It's hard
Why
to
would
eat.
you have hot dog art?
yeah. Well, it is the cover of the book we're kickstarting, which you can see at see down here, miniaturedragon.com.
Measures right. If you go to that site and you see that picture, you should totally click on it.
Yeah, you can actually play both of these things in this game. By the way, you can actually play a hot dog robot.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Hot dog. Is that hot Borg? Dog Borg?
it's funny enough. We actually had to cut cyborgs for space reasons, but my wife wanted the robot race, by the way, and so we're doing a if you see that. Well, basically, we're doing a little zine book coming on Kickstarter, where we're doing this crazy space opera game where you can play hotdog-people and Cthulhu tadpoles and all kinds of fun stuff. But my wife wanted to have the robots turn out to have people's brains in the bodies. I'm like, oh, you mean like the GoBots? And she's like, what? And like the GoBots were actually cyborgs. Most people don't know that.
Forgot.
Yeah, they were cyborgs. It was only in one episode, but yeah, they have actual brains in those heads, and those giant robots had people brains.
I don't know what GoBots
That cartoon was pretty obscure. Not a lot of people saw it.
I thought it was a lot of fun. So, but I'm also in that age range where I saw it. So, but yeah, check out the Kickstarter. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of really crazy stuff in there. You can play an agent for hire.
Nice. And talk about crazy stuff. Our new anthologies are out. We're up for pre-order.
I see your Kickstarter and I raise.
Yeah, you supported our Kickstarter, so our fairy tales, folklore, and fables reimagined.
Yeah, I've got the book over here somewhere, actually, on the shelf.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that is going to be available for pre-order for all of you who aren't Kickstarter backers at the end of February last Tuesday of February and the first Tuesday of March for Volume 1 and Volume 2. So go check it out. No hot dogs, though. I'm sorry. I don't think.
Yeah.
We need a hot dog story.
Yeah. We have hot dogs, robots. We have living pretzel people. You can play a Cthulhu tadpole. You can play a ghost. There's a shadow person you can play. It's and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we better wrap up this episode. And I think, we talked, hopefully we helped out people a little bit. And feel free to let us know your thoughts in the comments, what you agree or disagree with us perhaps about. And if you have any hot dog stories, I don't know.
Yeah.
More hot dog stories.
More hot dog stories. You never have too many.
It's really weird how many people are into hot dogs once we've been selling this stuff.
It is kind of ironic that on a video about realism, we're talking about hot dog people who eat hot dogs.
How plausible is that again?
That's what's funny about this is everything that's in this Kickstarter is exactly the opposite of what we've been talking about today.
But comedy's a separate thing. So.
Yeah, comedy's a separate thing. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
comedy's the whole thing.
Yeah, comedy has different rules.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching this Art of the Game. Subscribe and you can catch all our episodes and our other shows too out there with games and more. So until next time,
cue the theme song.
Bye.
When the dice roll high, we touch the sky. But when they crash, it's a belly laugh. Genre play lighting the way. Our tales are